The following podcast is a next level production.
I guess someone has to be the monster. The one who favors reason and shatters dreams. I've died and sacrificed my bond with Alex so many times for this train. To surrender now would render that meaningless. So, maybe it was inevitable that the monster would be me.
Hey panelers, welcome back to the show. I'm Steve.
And I'm Daphne.
And this is going to be a spoilerful podcast of the season 3 finale of Snowpiercer. This is episode 10, The Original Sinner. Daphne, why don't you give us our synopsis for this one?
All right. So, the synopsis is, it all comes down to a head as old adversaries clash with New Eden hanging in the balance.
Yeah, that pretty well sums it up.
It does.
So what were your initial thoughts after the very first watch?
Okay, I really liked this episode. I feel like it took us to a new place literally, but also I feel like there were a lot of undercurrents going on with some of the different storylines, and was a lot to pack in an hour. And I know that in the past I've said, oh, I wish they'd spread this out over 2 episodes. Well, this is one that I wish we'd had an extra, maybe 20 minutes to really, let it sink in.
Yeah, I think there's a few things they probably could have fleshed out a little bit more that would have been good. But I liked the way it wrapped it up. I loved that we got a lot of stuff that I didn't expect to get. I didn't expect to get to where we get to at the end. And in a million years, I would never have expected the resolution they came to, which I'm sure we will be talking about as part of our discussion.
Yes.
But I would have never, if you told me this is what they're going to do, I'd have been like, no, they're not going to do that, and then of course that little epilogue that we have, leaving us with so many questions of what's going on. Where are they at this point? I'm so glad that we know they are in production for season 4, because they said that at the end of the episode. They're like, season 4 is in production. So you're like, okay, good.
I do wonder how many more seasons we're going to get of Snowpiercer. I would think they would try to wrap it up this next season, or at the very latest, the one after. Because I love this show, and I don't want it to go on too long. I want it to especially end where we're strong.
At. Yeah, and especially where we're at right now with the end of season 3. So I'm kind of with you. I would love for them to go to 5 seasons. I don't know if that's the rule anymore. I know there used to be a rule in TV world that you had to go 5 seasons to get syndication, but I guess with streaming and stuff, that's probably not really a rule anymore.
I don't think it's I don't think it's as big a deal anymore.
So if they wrap it up in 4, I'll be happy with that. If they can get it into 5, that would be cool as well. I'm sure they can make the story last that long.
But I don't think it should go any longer than that. I'm afraid that they're going to start to lose the actors to other things, and I want the show to end the way that these showrunners have in mind, and not be sidetracked by contract negotiations and other things that come up with other shows, that have happened with other shows.
And that too is, this world is much smaller, unless they find some way to expand the world, to show other survivors or something. This is a very small world that we have here. I mean, we're going to have 2 places in the next season, but it's still a very compact kind of cast and stuff. So I think 4 or 5 seasons I think would be great. So Well, with that, we will get into our top 5.
It's time, darling. I'm making my move.
So, Daphne, why don't you kick us off with your first thing you want to discuss? First stop on this train.
The first stop on the train on our final episode covering season 3. I want to talk a little bit about the opening and the crossover voiceovers that we got between Leighton and Melanie talking about the original Sinners.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved at the end of it that they both were saying on Snowpiercer 1,029 cars long. Like, I felt like it just pulled everything in.
I have this quote, and I have part of it. I think it's not the whole thing, but it's Leighton's part of it that ends the whole sequence is the original Sinners, me and Melanie. I should have known it would come down to this. How else would we choose humanity's fate but by war? And that's where they merge the dialogue, and they both say on Snowpiercer, 1,029 cars long. And such a foreshadowing. There's so many, this is peppered throughout my notes, is on my second watch, there were so many foreshadows of what they were going to do that on first watch, we would never have known it. But on second watch, you go, oh, I see what they did there. But I'm sorry, I'm hijacking your point. Your first.
Don't hijack my train. Don't take my cars, Steve. It's interesting because when I was putting my notes together, I try not to go and read any other articles when I'm getting prepped for a podcast. But we had an extra day this week. So I read a few things. It's interesting that some people thought that Melanie and Leighton were in on this con from the beginning. Is that something that you think? Do you think that they made a plan to pull Leighton in? I mean, to pull Wilford in and kind of sucker him like that? Or do you think that this is how it unfolded because of the two leaders that they are, knowing that the people were the most important thing?
So I've got this peppered throughout my notes, so I may repeat myself if I forget what I said. But the short answer is no. I think the moment they made this plan is when Leighton made that phone call to Melanie, and she says it's almost at the final hour or something like that. I think that's the conversation where they decided that's the conversation where they decided kind of what they were going to do. I don't know if they figured out how they were going to do it, but because later it almost seems like a surprise when Wilford threatens Leanna. And
I can't believe that Melanie would not realize after he had her daughter and turned her daughter against her and stayed away for all this time and then, comes in and takes over again. Knowing how he has used her daughter, why he wouldn't do it again.
That's an interesting point, because that could have been, and like I said, again, I think this was hatched in that phone call between Melanie and Leighton. And I think you've hit on it. I think she knew how Wilford thought, and she knew that Wilford was going to try to use Leanna against Leighton, because that's what he had done to Melanie. He had used Alex against her. And so that's why it's almost like she almost then gave it away in the conversation with Wilford when she says to him, oh, you're going to do it again. You're going to use someone's child against them again. And at that point, Wilford I think his ego is just too big. But at that point, he could have maybe thought, "Are you planning something here?" But no, I'm with you. That's a really good point. I think she knows him well enough that she knew. But I don't think this was the plan from the beginning. I think it was more there after, because remember, they have that conversation, and again, this is peppered throughout my notes about the fear and blood conversation. About how Wilford and Melanie kind of ruled the train by fear, and the Tale and Leighton were willing to go to blood.
Yes.
And I've Melanie, got more about that.
Yeah, and Melanie even says, either way, fear or blood, they're both going to lose and Wilford is going to win.
Yeah,
basically.
I've got that in my notes somewhere. Did I put it in my point, or was it in? Yeah, well, I'll probably say it again. Oh, here it is. It's either way. It's Leighton says fear or blood, and then Melanie replies with either way he wins, and then Leighton says and we lose.
Yep.
And that's in that conversation. So I think, I think that plan was hatched, not spur of the moment, but not. I don't think that was the plan from the beginning because too much went on in between.
Yeah.
For that to have always been the plan, So I think it was later. I don't think it was all along. I think it was later that they.
Yeah.
And then also, like I said, I think it was later they came up with the plan to split the train. That was a later, or it may have been in that conversation. It may have been discussed in that conversation. But I think I think the plan to split the train was after they took after Wilford was removed.
Well, and they finally did do what needed to be done with Wilford. He needed to be off the train. Now, preferably put him in a drawer, but he was completely off. Now he's off the train. But that could be another point. So, Steve, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay.
What point do you want to talk about first?
I want to talk about Audrey and Bess. That's who I want to talk about.
I knew you would.
I loved this storyline from the beginning with Audrey playing the piano and Oz, breaks in on her and he's like, "What are you doing here?" And she's like, "Trespassing," that I thought was just great. And then the whole thing of Wilford thinking that he still had hold of her. Because remember, we've talked about that over the last few episodes, that the further away she got from Wilford, the better of a person she was and more of that redemption arc that she was on. So I love the fact that we get this Wilford telling her, "Oh, if there weren't people around, I would ravish you," or something like that. And she's just, you can just see there's kind of disgust on her face at that point. I love, basically, I just love the whole thing that and this is one of those ones that this storyline kind of carried out throughout the episode. It didn't happen all in one block. She tells Oz that she's not on his side anymore. But then there's a few times where she kind of looks like it when she's drinking. But so she had me fooled a little bit, but I love that Bess never lost faith in that didn't. Audrey was always. I thought that was great. Even though, when Oz says that he's got Audrey and Leighton says against her will, and Oz says, "I don't know. She didn't leave when she had the chance." I don't think Wilford would have let her leave. And I think she
I agree. I don't think he would have let her leave. And I think one of the differences in Audrey at this point in time is Till has convinced her that she's the best version of herself being in that night car and healing people. And Till and Audrey have this blossoming romance and really care about each other. So Audrey has something else in her life, something positive to hold on to. And she, to me, at times looked terrified a bit, but still strong, but scared. And I think you're right. I think she knew that he was never going to let her leave.
No. And let me just say again, I've been saying this the whole season. Mickey Sumner, amazing. I just loved her portrayal. I loved the torture in her voice when when Audrey says, "Well, my best version is here." And Till knows that she needs to stay there. But Till also says, "I can't stay here. I have to leave." But then at the end, that when she makes that final choice to come back to the train, I was like, I teared up a little bit, thinking the fact that these two, I just love the fact that she made that choice at the end to go back to the train, and we see her dressed in her full brakeman outfit, which I'm assuming she's going to be in charge of the brakeman.
Yeah, that is what I put in my. Yeah, that's what I put in my notes. She's got stripes on her shoulders.
Okay,
It's
I didn't
not,
notice the
yeah.
specs, so.
Yeah, she's not going to be just the brakeman anymore. I feel like she's going to be in charge of all the brakemen on that.
Mm-hmm. Whatever
And,
Roche,
you know,
whatever title Roche had, was it Chief Brakeman? I think it was Chief Brakeman or something like that.
she's going to be the one in charge. And the thing is, she finally did, Till finally did something for herself. She's been doing stuff for everyone else and fighting wars and doing all of these things. And that decision that she made to go and be with Audrey was like the first decision that she actually made for herself. And she looked like upset when she had, when she told Leighton. I mean, they literally had like 10 seconds. Like there was no time.
Yeah, and she didn't get a chance to say goodbye to Roche.
No. And she just crossed over and she and Audrey embraced, and you could tell there was a hard decision for Till to make, but she did something for herself. And even though she wanted to get off Snowpiercer, I think part of it is because she never really had anything to hold her there. And now she does, so it's a little bit different. I learned something interesting. Did you know who Mickey Sumner's father is?
I do not.
It's Sting, the musician from The Police. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was in Only Murders in the Building, too.
Yeah.
If you watch that show with Steve Martin.
I have not seen it, but I've heard it's really good.
He did a cameo. He did a cameo in that show. That was pretty funny. So interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah.
So she's his daughter. I can
Yes.
see it now. And but yeah, I just thought it was marvelous the way she played it. And like you said at the end, I think even when she comes into Roche's cabin and Roche says, "I let Carly make the decision," and you can see the turmoil in her, and he can see that she's hurting. So I think we may or may not get this from Roche next season, but I would love to get a line from him about something about, I'm glad that Till made the decision she made. She deserves to be happy, and she would have been pleasant here, but I don't know if she would have been happy away from
because she had something to lose, and she before didn't. And so their relationship, because Audrey was healing her and helping her realize that she could let go of the past. She didn't have to be that person anymore. And that relationship was such a positive thing for both of them. So she really, making this choice was important for her. And I think that Roche was like a father figure to her. Mm-hmm. And I think you're right. I think he would be fine with the decision that she made.
So that's what I got. What's your next one?
All right. Oh my goodness. All right. So my next one is why not rip the Band-Aid off now?
Okay.
So we got the demise of one of the power couples on the train. Oh. As Oz decided, yes, I'm going there. Oz decided, I am. Oz decided that he'd had enough. He wants LJ to come with him, but he's not going to stay behind with her. He wants to go and be, away. He's had enough of LJ and her power-hungry obsession. She wants him to stay, but he's not on the same wavelength. He wants to go plant potatoes. Like, he wants a different life. And he's willing to take the risk and leave her to go do this. He wants that sense of adventure. He wants that sense of not knowing. And so LJ is left in a very difficult position because Oz decides to go on Big Alice to go to New Eden. So LJ is left. She doesn't have the night car anymore. Audrey has it again. She's really left with someone running Snowpiercer who understands who she is and what she is. So she's really got nothing. She's alone. She has no friends. She has nobody. And she decides to suck on her dead father's spare eye. And that's the end of LJ. Someone bumped into her. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's been a fear of mine for LJ. Every time I ever saw her put that thing in her mouth, I'm just like, that just seems very dangerous. Like I see people put plastic water bottle caps in their mouth, and I think the same thing. I go, what are you doing? Just one slip and you're choking on that thing.
Yes,
but yeah,
and no one there.
It was on one hand it was tragic, but on the other hand, we've been talking about this. It's kind of, I don't want to say it's what she deserved.
It was what she deserved, Steve. She deserved to go out in this way because of all of the terrible things that she's done. And I want to revisit season 1 because that's when we got the really demented LJ. And if you look back to everything that she did, they chopped a guy up and chopped his limbs off while he was still alive. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is the death she deserved. And I was okay with it. As much as I enjoy watching her character, because you just never knew what she was going to do next. I mean, she flip-flopped. They talk about flip-flopping in Survivor. This girl was flip-flopping more than anyone I've ever seen, going back and forth. And I think I'm grateful. I'm glad that Oz left. I'm glad that he... Yeah.
Going back to Oz, I talked about this was it the last episode when he's doing the whole thing with the peppers? And like it seemed like his character did a 180, and I think this furthers that progression of who he's become, and he's changed. He's no longer, again, if you go back to season 1, he was this kind of ruthless kind of
he was a jerk.
And now he's become somebody that, like you said, wants to take a risk, wants to. I'm sure that planting potatoes thing. I'm with you. That planting potatoes thing was way too specific that he had to have said something like that to her about it. Living in an igloo, planting potatoes. And she's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I need the comfort and the luxury. And she ends up dying alone. And that, unless somebody finds her. But
I don't think that they will. I think she's gone. And it's okay. Because I think the show is ready to move on from some of the things that were holding it back in the past. Mm-hmm. And I loved this. I loved her character, as demented as she was. I just thought the actress did a fantastic job bringing her to life. She was very animated. It was just very cool.
Yeah.
And now that she's gone, it's okay. We're transitioning to what I think could be a new show with the train splitting, which we haven't talked about. But anyway, the death of LJ, Lila Folger Osweiler.
Yes.
May she rest in peace.
Sad.
And I'm grateful that Oz left and
I'm
is going to have a life.
Yeah.
Because I thought she was going to kill him last week, and I think it's better knowing, that he's safe and he can have a good life.
Yeah, exactly. So my next one, I want to kind of go back to the beginning of the episode, and when we first have Till coming into Layton and talking about everyone who was on the fence has decided they're for the train, and Javi says something about, well, they don't like being lied to or something like that, and then she says that everyone on AgSec is for the train, and that's like deflating to them because they're just like, we needed AgSec because that's the most important car, but I like that Ben brings up that even though yes, New Eden was a lie, the science still merits the risk. He still believes that there could be a warm spot out there, and I love that he's talking about the science, because that's, Melanie kept saying the science didn't allow the risk, but Ben's saying, yes, it does. And that's what Alex is saying. And so we have that moment there when Layton thinks that he's he's done, and he goes back to the tail. And I
Mm-hmm.
love that we saw all our tailies getting back together again and uniting. And he's able to convince them he basically tells them, if we stay on this train with Melanie in charge, things are going to go back to the way they were. We're going to get pushed back to the tail. We're going to be back to starving or eating meager portions. We're going to be the low-class citizen. We're not going to be regarded. He says, we need to get off this. We need to take the gamble that we can get off this train. And so I just love that they all kind of joined in, behind him on that. And they do that whole, the banging on the roof thing. And they do that whole, one tail, and they're beating their fists on their chest. And I just loved seeing our united tail again, because we haven't seen that at all this season, really. Because everybody was all together. And now suddenly the classes are starting.
Yeah, it's been really conflicted this season. The tail's been through a lot, though. I mean, they had to do Old Ivan's Way with Pike and Leighton. Josie's kind of taken up the mantra of leading the tail, because Leighton has been leading the whole train.
Mm-hmm.
But so many of the ones that we cared about are no longer there. So when I was looking at that group, seeing, looking in the crowd, it was like, wow. It just reminded me how many people we lost this season. Mm-hmm. And who we have left that we care about from the tail, like Zirak and Lights and Winnie. There's not a lot left of that group that we got to know.
Yeah, yeah. So it was really great to see them band back behind Leighton. And again, in this is one of those times when there's another moment where we had some foreshadowing of what's to come, where Leighton says there has to be a better way. And that's when he gets on the phone to call Melanie. And, so I'm really excited to see where the show goes next season with our basically two groups and what Wilford's going to do. So yeah, just the fact that the tail got behind Leighton again. Leighton basically got his position back of being that leader, but the leader of the tailies, and he got their respect and he got that back. And I just loved it. So
that is a great point. My next one is about Melanie and Alex getting to a good place, even if it meant splitting up. Because there's a point where Alex leaves and goes to join her mother, and she really throws a fit and says, I've left my friends to come be with you. Are you happy now? Mm-hmm. And I think Melanie realizes that no matter what she does, she could be saving Alex. She could still lose her, because Alex has grown up in this time that Melanie's been away. She's become a huge part of Leighton's group that, took control of the train. She's come into her own. And, Melanie is seeing that, I think seeing her come willingly to her side and then going in the room and closing the door. I mean, that's what a teenager would do. And so I think Melanie's seeing that Alex has really matured in the time she's been away. And she tries to get Alex to understand that they need more time, that the science isn't right. And looking at it objectively is what you need to do. And if you can't do that, you've lost your way as an engineer. And then everything gets resolved. And I knew as the episode progressed and you started to pick out where people were going, that this was going to mean that Alex was going to leave to go on Big Alice. Right. And it makes sense if you think of it. One, because who knows more about Big Alice than Alex? Because she ran that with Wilford for so long. And so we get to see this tender goodbye between the two of them, where Melanie's packing her extra Melanie's basically packing her bag. Because she knows that Alex is going to leave to go. She wants more. And I think it's okay. And Melanie, did what she could do as a mother and, just sent her off with the best wishes and is hoping that everything goes well. But it had to be a hard decision.
Yeah.
For her to be able to do that.
I love that touching moment between the two of them, when she's packing, she says, I packed a bunch of socks in there and I gave you my jacket and this and that. But, and then again, there's that moment when they do separate, when Leighton and Melanie are talking and Leighton basically says, and I've got the quote, I think I've got the quote down below. Let me see where, I guess we're guardians of each other's loved ones now.
Yes.
And she's talking about Alex and Leighton. At first, I had forgotten that Zara. He's talking about Miles.
He's talking about Miles.
And so I just love that moment because at first I had forgotten in the second watch that Zara and the baby stayed with Leighton.
Yes. Yes.
And so I thought he was talking about them, but then I realized no, he's talking about Miles, and it's great that we've seen Miles kind of come back in this. I know we talked about earlier this season that we were worried that they might have to recast it or they might not bring him back, but he's a kid, he grows, so let him grow. I
was afraid he was a casualty of the flu. I mean, because everything else had happened, and it was cool to see him stay behind. And at the end of the episode, we were seeing him really learning engineering, like being right in the engine. So that was cool. And seeing Melanie interact with him just a little bit, you could tell that there was that, warmth from her. Mm-hmm. And I appreciated that as well. Because, I mean, Melanie and Alex have not had a lot of time together. They just really started bonding when things went bad. And she went out to get data. And she hasn't had a lot of time with her. But they have bonded enough that there's that respect there.
Yeah, and that's why I'm glad that we got to see that. I want, between before season 4, I want to go back and do a full rewatch of all 3 seasons, because I want to try to figure out exactly how much time has she had, because it's might be less than 6 months, or it might be only a few months that they've actually been together on the same page, So I when we go back and do a rewatch, we'll have to pay attention to try to figure out the timeline there. Yeah,
I feel like there may be one that we can find online that will help us, figure this out. Because I pay so much attention to the characters that I'm not always paying attention to the time as much. I can tell when it's been 6 months or 9 months when they tell us, but otherwise, yeah.
So my next one is Melanie going to Wilford. We briefly touched on this when we talked about the preview for this episode last week, that I was afraid that they were going to start working together or something. And I love that she kind of tries to lay down the law on him and go, well, if I'm going to get, basically she just wants his people. She just needs the numbers. And she's like, but I'm only going to do it on these conditions. You've got to stop being an engineer. You got to let me run the train and all these things. But yet he keeps still kind of digging in there, calling himself, well, I'm a trusted advisor, and I love Roche's response of like, do you really think you can trust this guy to take a back seat? And she's like, I'll take care of it. I'll do it. But then, obviously, ultimately she has to she realizes that he's not going to do that. And so here she is. And like I said, this is where we get into that point you talked about at the beginning of when did this plan hatch to get rid of Wilford? And I think the inklings of that were started here because he basically is telling her she's going to have to rule by fear if she's going to keep hold of the train, and he's going to still be there. She's got to make the people be afraid of what's out of the train. They've got to be so scared to not leave the train that they're willing to follow you in anything. So,
yes.
And then of course we get, Roche kind of decides that he's just going to keep the 2 groups separate, not actually fight. But
Yes.
it ends up being, it's almost anticlimactic in a way. There's not really a fight because they have that moment where Roche is calling out and saying, well, what are you going to do? What is your choice? And Josie says, prepare to brace. Oh, I've got it down here. She says, prepare to brace. We may not want blood, but we're ready for it. And all the tailies, that's that moment when they're pounding on the roof and they're all shouting. And Leighton says that they have earned their passage off this arc. I love that he calls it an arc. We haven't heard him call the train an arc for a few episodes now, and I'm not even sure this season if we've had it referred to as an arc. But I just love that fact that we get this the way the story twisted for us, in that we thought it was going to go one way and it went a completely different way all of a sudden.
I know, and I looked at the timing as I was watching the episode, thinking, "Oh my goodness, there's still a lot of episode left. What's going to happen? Like, there's a lot here."
Yeah, there's like we're only at the halfway point when they put Wilford off the train and basically come together. And I'm like, so what's the rest of this episode going to be?
I know. Yeah. Speaking of Wilford, that segues into my next point, which is about two legends being better than one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Melanie was hoping Wilford wasn't going to go there and take, or threaten Leighton's child, Lyanna. And then, Melanie's like, straight out of your playbook, huh? The enemy's child. And it's true. Who knows better, as I said earlier, than Melanie what Wilford will do with the children of his enemies?
Yeah.
And we're led to believe that Leighton is going to have to fight yet again, because he's always trying to fight for the people. And instead, they dupe Wilford into thinking that he's going to, be able to use Lyanna against Leighton, and then he's not. And she gives him suspension fluid and puts him on a track scaler and says, there's enough. You can bring yourself back. You can do whatever. And he's, of course, being the pompous person that he is, saying, talking about surviving. He gets on there. You'll see who can survive,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Man.
so it's going to be interesting. I love this. This kind of segues into my next one as well, which was kind of the progression of this plan, because I think part of what happened may have been, Zara goes to Wilford to make sure, hey, our agreement about me and Lyanna is still that we're going to survive and we're going to have a place of our own. And he's like, of course, because, and he says something to her that I think this is what started Leighton down the path of realizing they had to get rid of Wilford, is when Wilford talks to Zara. And then when Wilford goes and talks to Melanie, that's when Melanie started down the path of, okay, we've got to get him off the train. And so when those two things connect, they both have the same thought in their mind, that he's going to use my child against me. And so I love this plan of where they have, they have Wilford, and he's supposed to go talk to, I think the idea was they had duped him, like you said, into that he's going to go relinquish his people to Melanie. And so he's got Icy Boki with him, and they managed to get him into that car. They managed to get him into that car where the scaler is, and she shuts the door on Boki, and then Ruth lets him chase her down the corridor until they get to where Lights is waiting to sabotage him with that door, and just boom, hit him with that door, and he's out. And so now they've got Wilford wherever they want him. Like you said, they put him in that track scaler, and she says, I survived 6 months, so you can survive, which I was a little unclear about what was the point of. Were they going to try to keep track of where he was and re-pick him up after a few months? Or
I would never let him back on that train. If he was allowed on the train, he'd be in the drawers. Mm-hmm. Because he hasn't really changed. He is such a chameleon. And he's so able to manipulate and change how he's appearing to everyone else, so they start to trust him. You can't do that.
Yeah,
so
I wasn't
he's
really
not.
sure.
It's not safe to have him around.
No, and I wasn't really sure then what the plan was for him to just, okay, we're going to put you in this track scaler and we're just going to like you circle the globe forever or until you die. It was a little unclear to me if there was a plan for it or if they were just like, you know what, we're going to put you in here for 6 months and then we'll figure out what to do with you after that. Because by then we will have figured out that New Eden actually exists. And then, of course, we have that epilogue moment where something explodes in front of Snowpiercer. And it looked like to me, unless you saw different, it looked like to me that was the Trek scaler that was.
I know.
I'm
not sure. I'm not
or
sure.
A missile or yeah. So
I thought it was. Yeah, I thought it was very clever that they, in turn, because Wilford was going to use Lyanna, they actually used Lyanna to get Wilford because he went to see Zara about Lyanna because he was going to work that out and use her against Leighton. And they ended up using her to get Wilford and get him off the train. Right. I don't think that Wilford is not a threat unless he's dead. Because he's been able to bounce back more than just about anyone. And I don't trust. He's too manipulative. He's too dangerous.
Okay. Yeah. So that's all I got. That it was a little confusing to me of where Wilford is here at the end of the season. You know, when we pick up next season, hopefully they'll show us where everybody's kind of at, and maybe we'll get more information about from that 3 months later thing. You know, we might get more information about that. I don't know. Hopefully.
Oh, I'm quite sure that we will. They've given us something to make us stew over the next few months. Be thinking about until we get to another season. Well, I want to move off of Wilford and talk a little bit about Ruth, who I think has become the beacon of hope for the people because she's always on the side of the people, and that's kind of how Leighton is too, which is why I think that their friendship is something that's continued to grow because they want what's best for everyone. And it was interesting to see Melanie realize that, you know, having Ruth on her side is not something that's going to happen. Because Melanie even says to her, the point is this, it's everything, every last soul on earth. If I have to sell mine to protect theirs, so be it, right? And then Ruth says, well, I'm sorry, but I've spent too long redeeming myself to go back now. And then she leaves to go to Leighton. Or basically she goes to the super secret hideout, like on the bottom floor of the train where she finds lights. And they start to put everything together for what they're going to do. But you have to... She's not even staying with Melanie when it's time to split the train. She wants to go and be on Big Alice and take the chance on New Eden. So she preps Tristan. And I love that she told him, you don't need a protocol manual to ease their journey and keep them safe. Because he does like to follow the book, and she's really not the Ruth that we first met. Although I think the Ruth that we first met did care about the people. It was about the people, but she made decisions that were wretched. And I have a feeling when we go back and rewatch season 1, we're not going to like the Ruth that we see. Because she's not this Ruth. She's really ruthless. She's doing terrible things. You know, they all did before they got to this point. That's why there's a thing called character growth.
Yeah. Yeah. I love, that's one of the things that we've talked, we haven't talked a lot about it. We've talked a little bit about it, I think, is that these characters, all of these characters really have, the ones that have survived have really changed and have grown. And even Pike, before his death, he was starting to grow. And I think the problem with Pike, I've thought some more and more about it. I think the problem with Pike was he realized that he was growing, and that things needed to change, and that's why he couldn't stand Leighton in this lie. So so yeah, I just love the character growth that we've had from everybody, from Melanie, from Melanie. There's that comment that Javi makes when she comes in to Big Alice, and he says, "You're wearing the engineer fatigues again," and she says, "Yeah, I hate that I called them that," and I think because she didn't want it to be militarized, but. When we first meet Melanie, she's in the teal and she's all dressed up and in charge of the train kind of thing. She's not in the down and dirty grittiness of it. And now she's more of the grittiness of it, of the being an engineer and leading that way. So next season, I think that's what
she wanted. I think that's what she wanted, was to be the engineer. I don't think she ever wanted to be the leader. I think she always wanted to be the engineer. And getting to see her reunite with Ben and for them to come to an agreement. But I love that Ben basically said, I'll serve with you till the end of time, but not unless I have all of you. That he's not going to sit by again and just be shut out and just have little pieces. He wants all of it. And I was happy to see him do that, because it's about frickin' time.
Yeah.
That he did.
Yeah. I love that. I love that very much. My next one is kind of the splitting of the train. And I have this quote that I wanted. I didn't do the whole quote of Leighton and Melanie, but I got the beginning quote from Leighton where he says, "Citizens of Snowpiercer, as the fork to New Eden approaches, I am proud to say that we have found a way through our impasse. We agree the only course is compromise, and the answer is individual choice." And then they go into explaining that they're going to split the train at AgSec, and that everyone has to make a decision. If you want to stay with Melanie on Snowpiercer, or do you want to take the chance of going on Big Alice with Leighton and going to New Eden? Everybody individually makes that choice. And I just love that, because as I said at the beginning, in a million years, I would have never thought this was the way they were going to go with this. But the more, as I watched it the second time, there were so many clues along the way. And really, if you go all the way back to when we first realized that there's another engine out there and that Big Alice is out there, this was always a possibility of splitting the train. So it was really cool to that. And I love that little hug, that kind of side hug from between Melanie and Leighton there at the end, showing that they're back on the same page of each other, that they're not at odds anymore. And they look back and they see all their people that are standing there just glowing with pride over the choice that they've made to do this, and to give everyone on Snowpiercer here's your equal chance of where do you want to go and which side do you want to take, or not. And side,
they've never had that before. Not with both Leighton and Melanie there together. They've never had the opportunity to make the choice to go or stay. And you know that it was gut-wrenching for some of them to make these decisions. I mean, it wasn't all like Roche, who just let Carly make the decision for him and then was on board with whatever she wanted. Which, by the way, I think there could be a little romance between Roche and Ruth coming. I'm just seeing, maybe, and I'm all for it, because they both deserve to be happy, and I'd love to see that for them. I think that they both definitely deserve it.
It's going to be cool to see, because I don't know how many. I didn't try to pause it and get an accurate count of how many people they actually had there at New Eden.
Steve, I did not get an accurate count, but I can tell you who the characters are that went with each side.
Okay, because I've got that. I've got some of that in my notes as well. So,
yeah, on Snowpiercer, we have Melanie, Ben, Audrey Till, Dr. Pelton, Miles, and Tristan. We didn't see a lot of who stayed on Snowpiercer. There weren't a lot of familiar faces. But on Big Alice, we have Leighton, Zara, and Liana, Josie, Alex, Javi, Ruth, Roche, Carly, Oz, Dr. Hedwood, Icy Bokeh, Lights, Winnipeg, Sykes, and Zerek. So that's a nice big chunk of people. And out of that list, though, the thing that I questioned was Javi at first, because I'm like, why would he want to go? But he had a lot of experience on Big Alice, if you think about it. And I was so happy to see Sykes was on that with him, because they have that friendship, and I want to see that blossom. It doesn't have to be a relationship. I just like how she's able to pull him out of the place that he was in. And I feel like
I didn't
there's
even
a
think
lot
about
more
that
to see.
when we realized that Javi ended up staying with Leighton and going to New Eden. And I wonder if that's because Ben's choice of staying on Snowpiercer lent it more to Javi saying, okay, well then I'll go with Big Alice, or Ben convincing him that the science merits the risk.
They needed 2 engineers on each train. So it makes sense that Javi would go on Big Alice. The interesting thing, though, that I took from the splitting of the train is, one, Snowpiercer as a big train never would have made it over the bridge to go to the Horn of Africa. Would have never done it. And by splitting the train, Big Alice was able to do it, and Snowpiercer, because it's lighter, can have a longer lifespan. So in doing so, they made a great decision to split it in half like that. It was a good decision.
I loved hearing that exchange between Melanie and Ben, where he says we're working more efficiently now that we're lighter, but they're not so light that they have the problem that Big Alice had of overheating. You know, because remember, that was at the beginning of the season. That was the whole thing, because Big Alice was only like 9 or 10 cars, and it was too short to manage all the engine. So I think it's great that we know that Snowpiercer can survive a little bit longer than what was originally thought, or they can definitely, maybe piece it together better. I love that Miles stayed on there. I did have a question. Do you think they have a way of communicating with each other?
I would hope so.
Or I would hope that there would be some way for Leighton to tell them that, hey, that it worked. Here.
Yeah, that it worked.
There
that
is a
New
warm
Eden
spot.
does. Yeah, New Eden exists. And if things continue to if the temperature continues to drop, they should be able to repair some of the tracks, which would make it possible maybe for Snowpiercer to come there at some point. I'm not sure. I mean, there's so many possibilities for next season, if you think about it, that I'm just not sure what direction they're going to go in. And, is this temperature drop temporary?
Yes, that was the other thing I hadn't thought about, was whether this is temporary or if it's actually going to be permanent. What's going to be the deal there? Is it going to start getting cold again? Is it the fact that we're in summertime now? Because they've never really told us what time of year it is. They probably haven't been keeping track of the seasons because there hasn't been seasons.
Right. It's cold all the time.
Right.
That's all you get.
I there was one thing though that I put in my notes that I thought was really, really cool, because I was reminded of the Snowpiercer movie. If you remember the end of the Snowpiercer movie, spoilers for a 15-year-old movie or whatever it was, 2004?
No, 2013.
2013.
So
okay.
9 years. So
movie.
it's 9 years.
9-year-old movie.
Yeah.
They derail the train at the end of the movie, and you have a very similar situation of people coming off the train there. So I thought that was really, really cool. That was a cool callback or homage to the movie, to have the train derailed there and have people coming off. But I'm trying to look and see if I've got anything else to talk about.
We've covered almost everything I have in my notes. I only have one more thing.
Go ahead, because I have one more little thing as well.
Okay. We have to talk about Icy Boki. I alluded to this last week. I was so excited when I saw him in the preview for the next episode. I didn't even know what condition he was going to be in, but I was so excited because I just love that character. But he wouldn't want to live like this. But he and Dr. Hedwood are now, they went on Big Alice, so I'm hoping maybe she can do something to get him back to partially
Yeah.
who he was.
Because it
'Cause
almost
I
seemed
liked
like he
him.
was. This was my other little note as well, is because it almost seemed like he was like programmed to
Yes.
to obey Wilford's every command, and we know
Yes.
that's not how he ended up. The whole reason why he was
No,
in
he
that
hated
aquarium,
Wilford.
yeah,
Was he-
because he figured
yeah.
out that Wilford had the other breachmen all killed. So
Yes. He would
Yeah.
never want to work for Wilford. He would hate it if he understood that that's what he was doing.
yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
that scene
So,
where people are punching him and he's just grinning and laughing about it, and
like,
Wilford's
that's
like,
not
the-
bogey.
yeah, he's like
It's not bogey.
What did he say? Something about Dr. Hedwood changed the terminology of no sensation of pain to can't be hurt, or something like that. I can't remember. I didn't write down
Yeah.
the actual quote, but something like
Yeah.
that.
So I hope that they can do something to bring him back to who he was, at least partially, because this Bokeh is real weird. And I want the old Bokeh back because I was
Yeah,
so excited
hopefully.
that he was there. So we'll see what Dr.
Yeah.
Hedwood can do.
Yeah. So any quotes that we haven't already done? I have 2 short ones.
I think I have used all of my quotes.
The
So-
first short one, the first one that I have is it's during that opening monologue again when Melanie is talking about somebody had to be the monster, and she said, so maybe it was inevitable for that monster to be me. And she has that discussion with Javi about, are you ready to be the bad guy?
The bad guys. Yeah.
Or are you ready to be the bad? Was
yeah,
it
and
Melanie?
he's
Was it Javi
okay
or
with
Ben?
it. It was Javi.
Yes,
and
because
yeah.
at first, right, because at first he was mad about being lied to, because that's how it was the beginning of the episode. So.
Yeah, he didn't view them as being the bad guys.
Mm-mm.
He thought, I think, that they were on the side of science. That's what mattered to him. They were
Yeah.
doing the right thing. So he didn't view them as bad guys.
And the only other one I have is that, and I didn't see which character said it. It was just when they were talking about making the choice. He says, "Down trained to New Eden, up trained to stay."
Yeah.
I thought that was
Can't believe it. We have split into 2 trains. And now here we are. The only other note that I have is Christoph Screw was the director. He's done 7 episodes total. He did 2 from season 2 and 5 from season 3, including The Tortoise and the Hare, which was the premiere. So he directed this one as well.
So let's get into some feedback. Do you want to take that first one from Facebook?
I sure can do that. So we have feedback from Christy, and this is about last week's episode. Melanie is back, all caps. Finally, I think she might have turned to the dark side, but I almost don't mind because she's back. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Well,
Yes,
we're pretty sure that that we're pretty happy that Melanie's back. Even though I'm still conflicted over her, like what she was doing, but I also get it, so it's okay. It just put something different into the mix. I feel like she thought she was doing the right thing, but I also don't. I know Leighton thought that everything was going to go back to the way it was and the tailies were going to be put in the tail, but I'm not sure that that is exactly what was going to happen because there had been time with Melanie on the train where that wasn't the case. So,
yeah,
yeah.
I think I said at the beginning that I'm with you. I don't know what exactly the train would have looked like if they actually had stayed together, but I'm glad they had the resolution. They've come to the compromise resolution that they had, and Melanie was the catalyst for that, whether it was chaotic or not, because she drops that chaos bomb, where she tells everyone that the New Eden is a line. But yeah, I don't necessarily agree with how she did it, but it got us to this point. And
yes.
I'm so glad, like I've said a couple times in this discussion, I'm really glad the writers did something that I didn't even expect. Like, it was totally blew my mind that
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, it makes perfect sense.
Mhm.
If you think about
Yeah.
it does. It makes sense that splitting
Mhm.
the train like this would be the right thing to do. But still, it's a
Yeah.
gamble because you don't know.
Right. Right. Okay. The next one we have a bit of audio feedback.
Hey guys, just wanted to leave some feedback for Snowpiercer's finale. I thought it was awesome. I loved how they did find a warm place. I thought it was kind of ingenious. They get the best of both worlds with the two trains. And you know Wilford's going to end up resurfacing next season. Interested to see what those rockets were at the end. And I equate Snowpiercer a lot like Walking Dead. You know, they never get a break, and they just keep piling the crap on top. I love the juxtaposition between Leighton and Melanie, how they did come together to be one train, even though it was a split. And can't wait to hear your thoughts on it. I am more excited about next season than I was about this season, and I just think they do a great job. They really find a way to keep it engaging. Were there a couple clunkers this season? Yeah, but on the whole, it was an A- for me. Talk to you guys soon.
All
All right.
right.
Thank you so much, Alex. That's appreciate that. And I'm glad you're excited for the season. I'm excited. You're excited for next season. I'm glad I'm excited. I'm excited for next season. I can't wait to find out what's going to happen and where they're going to take us. And yeah, so that's thank you
I
very much.
love I love that Alex pointed out, the one train. Even though we're split, I still feel like Melanie and Leighton got to this point of being one train to make the decision to split into two. Like, I really like that. I'm glad he mentioned that.
Yeah, yeah, and I glad we didn't really touch too much on it, but he did mention that Wilford is definitely going to resurface, and I'm sure.
Ugh.
Yeah, somehow Wilford is going to come back. I don't know what state he's going to be in or what he's going to be like. We talked about there was a bit of a shift in, maybe it was all a con in the last episode. I think we decided that last episode it was all a con since he ended up killing the brakeman and he was just kind of pretending of kind of going along. So yeah.
Yeah. He always continues to turn up, so they're never safe. And I think I mentioned this earlier. Unless he's dead, there's always that danger of him coming back and causing havoc.
Well, that has brought us to the end of our discussion. I don't have any podcast recommendations or YouTube recommendations. I will tell you, listeners, I have been ill today, and so I kind of laid low all day today and just did my Snowpiercer notes to get ready for tonight. So I don't have any recommendations. Do you have any recommendations, Daphne, outside of our usual?
No, I'm still staying caught up with Walking Dead cast because that show's going to be coming to an end, actual end. And so I've been trying to stay caught up with that. And I was at Fandemic a week and a half ago, so I really haven't had time to do anything.
Yeah. I mean, the usual ones I'll mention because definitely check out Walking Dead cast on Podcastica, the Podcastica Network. And of course, we'll talk about it later that here on Panels to Pixels, we'll be covering Moon Knight, that they are also... House Podcasting is going to cover Moon Knight, and TV Podcast Industries is going to cover Moon Knight. So we'll have multiple people covering the same show. It's going to be interesting to see and hear everyone's thoughts.
I know, I'm excited about that.
I am. We watched the first episode. I watched the first episode today, and I really like what they've done with the character, and I'm excited for the rest of the season. I'm kind of mad that Marvel Disney Plus does this 1 hour, six episodes, 1 hour a piece. So we're only going to have 6 episodes, but hopefully they'll be good.
Yeah, I'm sure they will be. They haven't let us down yet.
Not yet.
It's all been great.
So hopefully you are listening to us on your podcast player of choice, whether that's Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, or whatever you use. I know there's like Doozer or Boozer or Loser. I don't know. There's a bunch of podcast players out there. Deezer. Okay. There's a bunch of podcast players out there. You can find us. Search for Panels to Pixels Podcast. If there's a chance to give us a rating, we would love to see that, and we'll give you a shout out if we see those.
Yes. You can check out our website at panelstopixelspodcast.com, all spelled out.
And right now, that website will redirect you to our Facebook page, which is one of the easiest ways to get in touch with us and stay in contact, which is just facebook.com/panels2pixels.
We're on Twitter at panels2pixels. That's panels, the number 2, and pixels.
We have an email address, which is panels2pixels1@gmail.com. That's panels2pixels1@gmail.com. The TO is spelled out right in the middle and the number 1. So panels2pixels1@gmail.com.
You can find us on YouTube if you search for Panels to Pixels Podcast. Please subscribe and give us a thumbs up on our episodes.
We are on Instagram at Panels2Pixels Podcast, all spelled out in letters. It's super long, but you can find us on there on Instagram at Panels2Pixels Podcast.
All right. You can check out all the other podcasts on the Next Level Podcast Network. We highly recommend them. Wilhelm, The Melting Pat, Podcast Zero, and so much more. Go to nextlevelradioonline.com and check them all out there.
And for us, no more Snowpiercer, not until the next season. But you will hear Mark and I covering Moon Knight. Hopefully that'll be out later this week or beginning of next week. We're supposed to record. This is Wednesday night, and we're supposed to record on Friday. So hopefully that will be out. Toot sweet.
I am... Okay, so you can hear me on my podcast, Run for Your Lives. Peg and I cover monster movies, creature features, some animated films, anything that makes you run for your lives, basically. We're on a little hiatus. However, we have 75 episodes that are already released, so please check them out. I'm also a co-host on the Yellow Jackets podcast. It's called Yellow Jackets WTF, and it's on the Podcastica Network.
As I said earlier, Moon Knight, we will be covering Moon Knight right here on Panels 2 Pixels. Can't wait to talk to you all about that and let you know what I thought. With that, I'm Steve.
And I'm Daphne.
And this was Panels to Pixels, and we will see you on the next panel. Good night.
Good night.